I was just going to say, like, do you ever get nervous?
Oh, yeah, still.
Yeah.
Still. Even with like the photography, like I photographed weddings for 15 years, I would still get nervous leading up. Like, don't mess anything up. What if I miss this? Okay, let's get started. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Show Up with Christine Chang podcast. I'm so excited. Today I have Kat Shelton on the podcast. She is the Director of Experience for the Heal and Flow Wellness events. And she also is the creator of the Beloved Woman Workshop. I also want to add that she teaches yoga and she used to have a juicing company in Texas. She didn't ask me to share that, but I really admire women who are very proactive. They're capable. That's you. You're very capable.
Thank you.
And multi-hyphenate. I feel like that's all of us today. You were asking me before we sat down, like, what's your main thing right now? I couldn't even give you a solid answer. So I think a lot of people can relate to that. But anyways, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. And, you know, we were talking before, this is a growth edge for me. So I'm excited to do something new.
Yeah, absolutely. Is this your first or second podcast?
First.
Your first.
Yeah.
And we're video recording it, which is like another layer when you go back to watch it. But I love that you're doing it because you just have to start.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And I think, actually, I always remember this from your lovely partner, Eben. He said at the retreat, because we met at the Heal and Flow retreat, which he was leading, but you were doing all the logistical work for. He sat down and the first thing he said to the group was how he felt. Like, I feel kind of nervous right now. And he just said what was on his mind. And that kind of relieves everything. So I try to keep that in mind instead of trying to be so polished or perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Just say what's on your mind. Like everyone's the same. No one's perfect and we all have our stuff. And I feel the more we share it, it's just better for you and it's better for everyone else too.
Totally. Well, even just like talking to you beforehand and you shared, you still get nervous. It's like, okay, yeah. And the whole way here, I had to be like, I'm showing up, I'm having a conversation with a friend.
Yeah.
And just sharing the story, you know, and that I don't have to be perfect or polished. And it's funny because I'm leading the Beloved Woman Workshop right now. And we're talking all about self-love and changing our relationship with ourselves and the way we talk and noticing what comes up for us when we come into contact with different people or different situations. And so all day today, I was just noticing, you know, all the thoughts, all the conditioning, all the old, you know, the thoughts that, I have to show up and I have to say something really impactful right now, or I need to be perfect. I have to look a certain way. And it's noticing and then just letting it go. You know, I've been teaching mirror work and affirmation work to the women. And so today I'm standing in the mirror, you know, doing my hair and my makeup. And I'm like, I love myself. I accept myself. I support myself, you know, and just telling myself that over and over again. And I could just feel my body totally settle. And it was like, yeah, you just go and be you.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's good.
So a lot of the things you do are wellness related. What has led you up to wanting to do this kind of work?
It was definitely my own health crisis. You know, when I was 21, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. And it was perfect that it was my physical body that took the hit because I was an athlete growing up. I was playing D1 college softball at the time when I got the diagnosis. And my body, my ability to perform athletically was such a source of pride in my identity. And so when that took a hit, it really opened my eyes to just start asking questions, you know. And when I got that diagnosis, I remember them telling me, you know, you're going to have this forever and you're going to need to be on immunosuppressant drugs for the rest of your life. And the big thing when I reflect and I'm like, what was the gold in that situation was that it really turned me back to me and to my inner knowing. And it was the first time I really remember like being connected to my intuition, because as soon as they told me that, I knew that's not my reality. Like that doesn't have to be my truth, you know? And so it just sent me on this journey of how can I heal this holistically? How can I not be dependent on pharmaceuticals for the rest of my life? I'm young. I know I want to have children, and I already understand that there are side effects with medications and things, and it just doesn't feel right or true. And so I started first just like changing the way that I ate, went really more to like a paleo lifestyle. And so it started with the physical body for me, the physical healing, and just doing my own research and looking for people who had come up, you know, against the same things, autoimmune conditions, and were doing it differently, you know, weren't just doing what Western medicine is saying you need to do. And thank God for my mother, she was right there with me. I think watching her, her baby girl suffer, and hearing me say like, I don't want this, like this can't be my life, And so I would say it was a bottom, like it was the physical suffering that really led me to, how do I heal my physical body, which then led me to, it's not just about the physical. There's also emotional and mental and spiritual healing that needs to happen. And so, that's how I came to really fall in love with health and wellness. And it just one thing leads to the next.
I know a little bit about, based on your Instagram post, about what happened, because you said you lost a lot of weight.
Yes.
Like, what were the symptoms that came up? You ended up in the hospital.
Yes. Yeah, so I was diagnosed when I was 21 and changed my lifestyle and did do the dance with Western medicine through college, was on some different drugs, and it's always like trial and error. So, I had to give myself injections at times. I was taking steroids and different immunosuppressant capsules. And then when I was in my young 20s, I was managing pretty well, like in remission is what they would say. And then I actually had a family tragedy happen. So I lost my younger brother at the age of 25. He was 23. And, grief, stress, it just triggered it. And so then I was in a full-on flare of, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And so the symptoms show up in my stomach, and it's extreme pain and, irregular bowel movements. It's not pretty. It's not a fun thing. And, my skin would really break out when my gut was off. The gut biome wasn't healthy. And so then I was experiencing, skin issues, neurological issues. And it got so bad that I started to Google MS, multiple sclerosis, because I was like, I think I have this. And so it was really just my body screaming like, hey, there is a lot going on in your life. There's a lot of things you're not wanting to look at or to acknowledge, the grief, the stress, the heartbreak, and then taking on so much in my family. Like, I was still living at home at the time. I was in my second year of working as a speech language pathologist. So I worked in the school system for a little bit with kids, and I was just trying to be the light for the family, and I wasn't taking care of myself. And then I wasn't telling anyone that I was not able to eat, and I wasn't sleeping. I was probably like 2.5 months of every night I would lay in the bed from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. and just pray for the morning, because my stomach I would be in so much pain. And so I was slowly withering away, and, rightfully so. My parents were very much in their own grief. And so, no one's really noticing, and just like keep wearing the same clothes, and, like you can kind of hide it until it got so bad that, I hadn't really eaten anything or drank, and I was so dehydrated. I had to scoot down my parents' stairs, and my mom was in the kitchen, and I looked at her. I said, Mom, I think I'm dying. And I saw like she really like woke up to it. So then we got into action. We went to the hospital, but I was really scared to go to the hospital, because part of leading up to that was I had been on some antibiotics, which when I look back, I can see how once I took those antibiotics, if you don't know, antibiotics, while they do wipe out the bad bacteria, they wipe out everything. So the good bacteria too. So for someone with a compromised gut, I was just, it really spiraled. And so I ended up in the hospital, and while I was there, I picked up multiple infections. And so I ended up in an isolation room for 3 weeks. It was about 100 pounds, which right now I'm like 155 probably, so very, just like skin and bones. And I was really scared, and it was really painful. And there was a lot of question marks, and it felt like, with what I had already known and researched, I'm not a fan of medicine first. Like, I like to be able to try to do it myself. And so going into a place where they're saying the answer is medicine and more antibiotics and certain things. I remember I was in the bathroom at one point, and I just got some test results back, and they said, you have this infection as well, and we need to, put you on this antibiotic. And I screamed at the top of my lungs. And I thought, like, I don't know how I'm ever going to get out of this. I can't see how I'm ever going to be healthy, be able to live. I'm going to be drowning in debt. It was just, piling on. And during that time, I ended up having to have a fecal transplant, which, if you don't know, they grow healthy shit in a lab. And then they spray it in your colon to repopulate your gut and try to get more good bacteria versus the bad, which was what was happening. And through that process, they saw that, 80 to 90% of my colon was ulcered. And before I went into that procedure, my GI doctor actually said to me, hey, depending on what we find, we may have to take your colon. And I, tired and weak, I still looked at him and said, you're never fucking taking my colon, because at that point I was like, I just have to hang on and get out of here. Like Western medicine does have a place. And right now, like I need it to save my life. I really do. And I'm thankful for that. And I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to really heal. Like this is such a moment of life, putting me face down and humbling me and saying, hey, there's so much going on, but if you don't take care of you, you can't do anything for anyone. Because I had really taken on this like savior complex, which is, I think, what led me to falling apart, trying to do all of it. And I think as women, we just so often, we love our people and we want to help and we want to fix and we want to save and we overextend and we pour from this empty cup and we just ignore ourselves until I couldn't anymore, And so that is, really what happened when I was 25. That really changed the trajectory of my life because I came out of that and was like, okay, there's something I need to learn. It's not just about the physical, because I was still eating and taking care of myself, working out and exercising, but there's emotional stuff going on that, put me in this place. There's a dis-ease in my mind and in my body, and it's showing up as this physical manifestation of this autoimmune condition, and so that totally had changed my approach to being well, I would say.
Would you consider yourself spiritual before you got sick? Were you in tune with that maybe my emotions might be causing some of my physical ailments, that it's not purely a, that it's all intertwined, it's not separate?
No, it's definitely been one of the lessons that came through, like I feel like the physical manifestation was here to teach me about feeling, because growing up, I played sports. I was I would say in my masculine until about 24, 25 of just like executing. And I love my father and he coached me from the time I was 8 to 18. And so he's the person that impacted me the most. And he's, was in the Navy and he's very like military approach to life. He moves 100 miles an hour. And so that's how I was operating. I heard often as a child, if it's not positive, put it behind you. And so I lived my life always saying, it's okay, it's great, it's good, I'm fine. Because it was that messaging, whether my dad meant it that way or not, right? As a kid, I took it as, okay, I can only be good and bright and okay. And you ignore the rest. Your emotions are irrelevant. And so I feel like the dis-ease, the autoimmune condition really was here to show me you can't go through life this way. You are a human. You are meant to have the human experience. You are meant to feel all the feelings, the whole range. And, this denying and suppressing will kill you.
How did you get that message? Because some people who are so disconnected from their emotions, they don't even know what they're feeling, or that wouldn't even come up for them. And it makes sense to me that if you're physically trying to heal and you're almost dead, that might come out. But was it like a moment? Like,
it's such a good
ding.
question. I don't know if I've ever thought about it, like how it really came through. My sister Kelly is deeply in touch and deeply spiritual, I would say, before anyone else in our family. Like she kind of leads that. And she was one of the people that was in the hospital with me. And she really was like digging to find out like what's going on in your life. Like
So
mentally, emotionally. Yeah. Like she's like, are there things you need to forgive?
Okay.
Like she really started to ask those questions because she believed that, like what's going on in our physical body, like there's something deeper, like your body's just talking to you. So I would say maybe she's the first person who, had me even take a look at like, oh, could this be connected? Is there really some truth here to, if I'm denying and suppressing that, really like I'm not okay and I'm suffering and I am sad and, and I'm not creating a place for those to be expressed or for those to move, that it's buried in my body and now it's ulcering in my colon, So I would say maybe in the hospital when she was asking those questions. And so I started to ask myself, Like, yeah, what is going on, And then, I got out of the hospital, and there's a long story, but, I got into yoga, and I did my yoga teacher training. And through that, I read a ton of good books. And I'm someone, like, if I read a book, I can really take the concepts and apply it to my life. Like, I can really play with it and be like, does this shit work? And then be like, yeah, wow, it really does. Like, it really changed me. It changed my life, And so I would say it was just like step by step, like seeds were planted, whether it was through people or conversations or a book or, an experience where it just opens your eyes. I would like to always say, like, a veil was lifted, and so when I was 21, a veil was lifted to start to ask questions, to start to trust my own inner knowing, to take a look at what I was putting into my body. And then again, when I was 25 and my brother died, and the veil was really like, what are we all doing? I'm looking around at my life like, I don't want to be doing the same shit for 20 years, and so what actually lights me up, and then obviously the health crisis, like a year and a half later, it was just like this fire, this 2-year refining period, really is what it felt like, of life cracking me open and asking me to take a look, asking me to remember. And yeah, I mean, it was really that, I would say, like, just allowing the situations to open me up to maybe there's something going on, or maybe there's something more different.
What are some of the emotions that you were not acknowledging at this time?
Yeah, my younger brother had passed away, and he took his own life. And I'm one of 6 kids, and my younger brothers are twins. And so, when someone in your life dies, you die, and everyone in the family dies with that person. The life you knew before dies. Like, it's never the same. And I don't think I wanted to acknowledge that I had anger. Anger's a hard one for me still. Like, I get mad if I'm mad, because I feel like I can logic my way out of it, but the emotion's still in my body. So I would say, like, there was anger for life changing. There was anger towards my parents for, I mean, they were doing the best they could. They just lost their little boy, or their son. And, but, like, I felt like I took on a lot as a 25-year-old, like writing my brother's obituary and going, to the church and really being involved in planning the funeral process and creating the video. And I could really, when I reflected on it, I actually just had to rewrite this story in the Beloved Woman workshop, because I was sharing this. And it was all about, like, I was living in the victimhood of, like, man, all this shit is happening to me, and I was really in that story. But while I was feeling like this sucks, I wasn't saying it, I was still walking around pretending just to be good and to try to, gather the family for dinners and trying to be my mom's person and be my dad's person, because I would say, they were just grieving really differently. My mom is hard on her sleeve, will cry at the Sappy commercial, and my dad is just more military, and he wants to move forward. And so I was still in the home, and so I was exposed to things that weren't really meant for me to see, like my parents' relationship and their process. And because of who I am, I was really taking that on and thinking and inserting myself, the savior complex, the ego trip of thinking like you can really save people here. And so I would, lay in bed and just cry with my mom and be there for her so she didn't feel alone, and then I would walk into my dad's office and just be a safe space for him to share whatever he was feeling. And it was just weighing on me. And I think that was really my first exposure to energy, like how if you are not aware of the impact of, coming into contact with people or situations, and you don't know how to, like, energetically shield or, like, even clear or cleanse or move energy, it was just like, it was killing me, and that was what led to this flare, this thing in my body saying, hey, you have to pay attention to us. There are things that you really need to take a look at. So I would say mostly anger, grief, sadness. As a kid, I don't really remember having a place to ever, deal with that or really, like, talk through that. And so as an adult, I didn't know how. So I just didn't.
And what are some of the things that you did to start healing the emotional and spiritual side of you?
Yes. Well, I would say it really started with I moved into my own place. I was like, okay, I got to be in a space where I'm not exposed to just other. I right now don't have the skills. At the time, I was like, I don't have the skills or the capabilities to handle this well. Like, this is going to sit on me. It's going to drain me right now. So I got to go. So I would say the first thing is I moved and I created my own little sanctuary, and so when I would come home from work, it was just my space, and I really like that lightened the load. And then, through reading different texts and different books and through doing the yoga certification and being in a group of like 30 women who, we'd come together and we would just talk through different life things, in the yoga certification. And I was like, wow, this is really powerful. And I started to be in a space where other people were showing up vulnerably and expressing their humanness. And I was like, oh, this is allowed. This is okay. Like, wow, she's so brave for admitting that. And that really opened me up, and I was like, I want to be in more spaces. And so then I started teaching at the studio and really got into community. So I would say like I got space and I got around other people who were living more in alignment with the way I was living, of like showing up authentically, like, and just however you are, my yoga studio, the owner, she was really great at like, come as you are. And I would just have conversations with her. And so it was like being in places where it was like so refreshing of like, oh, I don't have to pretend here. And then, it was up to me to start to really bring down the walls and like really play with that of like, where am I at today? And can I just be that, or do I walk into this studio and I turn on, and I zip it up and I'm like really stoic and, poised. Mm-hmm. And so I would say like it started with space and then being around other people, starting to really like witness myself, and be like, yeah, where am I pretending still? And then that, took me to wellness events and where people were getting, first day, like really opening up and connecting. And every time I put myself in a situation like that, I just pushed myself to also like, I would just like want to choke on it. Like whatever the real emotion was, I did not want to say the thing, but it was feeling that and doing it anyway. And then each time like it gets easier and easier. And then again, just you start to really find your people, and that makes it easier to start just feeling. I just needed space to feel. I needed to start to really be able to sit with myself and say like, oh yeah, I'm mad. I'm annoyed. Like Eb's so great because it's still hard for me. And Eb's like really emotionally mature and like will say the things, if I ask him at the end of the day, like, hey, how are you doing? He's going to pause and he's going to give me probably like 5 or 6 words. Like, I'm feeling good. A little bit tired, had a little bit of, anxiety earlier. Like he's really going to tell you. If you ask me like, hey, how are you doing? Great. And so it's been cool to be in partnership with him because I get to really see that part of myself of like, oh, okay. And then I get to really like drop in and be like, wait, how am I today? So I would say like learning to really check in with yourself and through all of it, it's really just connected me back to me. We walk around, I said this the other day because I was like, am I just sensitive? Like, how did we used to do X, Y, Z? Like, this makes me so tired now. I feel so drained and it feels like I didn't even do anything. And it's like, no, actually, you're just feeling, where for the first 30 years of your life, you were so out of touch. There was no space. And so, it's just like having the space, I think, to really like lean in and then surrounding yourself with people who are also doing it and can lead you. So I didn't know what I was doing. It's like, you gotta find people who are doing it and living that way. And it feels weird at first, but it's like, well, let me give this a shot.
Absolutely. Because it's unfamiliar. You and I are very similar. And it is weird. I don't talk like that with my mom. Like growing up, we don't say things like that.
Totally.
But when other people do it, it gives you permission, right? Like it feels safer to do it and more normalized to do it.
Yeah.
I've been to therapy several times, but one of my biggest takeaways or the thing I noticed is a lot of times I would often say, I didn't know that bothered me. All these little things. And also,
Yeah.
they have like an emotional feelings wheel.
Yeah.
So you're like a little kid pointing, like, what am I feeling? And I need this chart because sometimes I don't even know what the word is. And there's so many words. I'm like, that one.
Yeah.
And I still, sometimes I had it as my home screen, the lock screen on my phone for a while just to
That's so good.
know this
So good.
language. It's very simple, but if you're not used to it, right, it's like a muscle.
Totally. Well, that's right. And it's like, man, I wish we would have been doing this when I was young,
It
but
would have
that's
helped.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's like, therapy. I did do a little bit of therapy now that you said that. I'm like, yes, therapy was great. A place to hear myself talk, really, with someone that wasn't involved at all in my life. Because part of my thing is I am like a positive and optimistic and like light person, naturally. And so yeah, there's this piece where I'm like, I don't want to call up my friend and dump. I don't want to talk about, like what's going on with my parents or my partner or whatever, because one, like this is going to pass. And so I don't want her to ever like view them negatively, and I'm like, I always just tell myself like, I can figure it out on my own is what I was doing. I'm like, oh, I don't have to say the thing. I'll just process it, but what happens is then you're just like self-abandoning. And you're taking all these hits and now you're feeling really resentful and bitter. And it's like you're just giving away your personal power left and right, because you don't know what you don't know. And so, yeah, I would say like the space to hear yourself is so impactful. And then, yeah, to start to be like, yeah, what am I feeling? What do I need today? And it feels like you're a young child again, which then leads you, right? Each one of these tools and practices and experiences, a yoga class leads you to a wellness event, and the wellness event connects you with someone who gets you into therapy or, talks to you about therapy. So you try therapy and then you start doing inner child work. And it's like, one door opens and then it's just like this snowball effect of the healing of things that, I'm like, 4 years ago, I'd never even heard of like inner child work. I'm like, what's that? Oh, I get to go back and like look at like why I'm showing up the way I am. And it makes so much sense. But if I never put myself in the space with people who were doing this, I still probably wouldn't know.
Absolutely. And this is a reminder that it's important to be around other people. Like some people, they whether it's shame or they're not comfortable with the healing process, it's easy to read books and things like that.
Yeah.
But even with books, even though a lot of them can have a great impact, you're still reading it the way that the old you reads it. It doesn't, it's not as expansive or like the mirror work. If someone asks you the right question at the right time in the right way, it like fires off new channels of thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You have to like relate. Like this is actually, I believe, like why we're here is to come and to relate to ourselves and to others, to learn to love ourselves, to love others. And so, yeah, you can when I lived by myself for 2 years and I was single and like loving my life, I had just like really, those 2 years were like, I'm going to just pour into me and take care of me. And I'm going to really like build out my life and I was thriving, right? And so during that time, you're like, yeah, I'm the shit. Like, I don't have anything. I've worked through it all. I'm like, I'm good. I'm great. And then you get into, and it was like, I needed those 2 years to get really good with myself, to become really solid and to really just give that time and energy and love and attention to me. And then when I was feeling good, I was ready to like come back to the world, and so I started to put myself out there and started volunteering and then doing event coordinating and being in different spaces, which led me to being in relationship again. And then you come into contact with another human and we're all beautiful mirrors for each other, right? And so now I'm like, oh wow, I have some shit. Like there's still some things, And I'm like, oh, I thought I was good though. And it's like, no, this is never ending. So you're so right. You need people, you need community, because also like maybe I'm someone I don't always have to experience something to learn. Like I know that, hitting bottom, going through own experiences is the best teacher. And I can watch other people and learn and be like, I'm good, and so it is. It's like to hear other people's story and to be able to, like you said, someone asks you the right question, they say the right thing, and a light bulb goes off for you, and suddenly something that you never even thought of makes so much sense and really clicks.
Okay, can we talk about dating and how this has manifested in
Oh my
your
God,
romantic
yeah.
life?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, you were pretty young before you got sick, so I'm sure you've dated a little bit, but I mean, when you were like teen to early 20s, I feel
Yeah.
that's a different chapter, completely
Totally.
different
Yeah.
person. Did you have any dating patterns leading up to actually,
Yeah.
or just what were your dating patterns?
Yeah.
What have been?
I would say that the people that I found myself in relationship with often mirrored just like gave me the feeling of needing to perform. And that comes again from just playing sports and getting recruited, and you're literally told like, you're marketing yourself, you're selling yourself, and what makes you special and why are they going to pick you? And so then you really get good at being a version of yourself, and so I was showing up that way in relationship. I was doing everything I thought I should, like the cooking and the cleaning and settling for scraps of affection or and just really trying to be what I thought that person wanted versus who I just am, and I was picking people that I couldn't really be silly and fun and playful with. And I was like growing up so silly, so loud, like such a jokester and storyteller. And I really lost that along the way. And I often think like, when did I stop being like the weirdest one in my family? Somewhere along the way, I picked up this belief, right, that men wouldn't like that. And so I was with men who like had this cool, mysterious vibe and also wanted me to kind of present that way, And so relationship patterns where I had to perform, I felt like I needed to be, I had to prove that I was worth it, and also ended up in situations where I wasn't fully chosen. And, there was a lot of cheating and forgiving and in this cyclical pattern of it happening over and over again and getting to a place where they say all the right things and then it happens again and I forgive. And until I finally was like, oh, because I'd be like, oh, this is their thing, like they're going to like waiting for them to get it. And specifically, I would say like my previous relationship was, a few years of like this pattern of like literally being together, something happening, me saying, I think we need space and time and like figure out your stuff. Them coming back, saying all the things I wanted to hear. Me going, oh, okay, it's finally it. Like they're ready. They get it. They know that like I'm it for them. Okay, yeah, we're going to do this. Recommitting, and then a year later finding myself in the same place. And probably like 3 times until I finally was like, oh, what's here for me? What do I need to change? Because I'm just waiting for this other person. I'm giving this other person all the power. And clearly it's not working, and it was like, okay, I'm saying that I want him to adore me, to choose me, to love me, to, cherish me, and to just like respect and honor. And it was like, well, you got to do that for you. I was like, oh, I have to choose myself. I have to love myself. I have to honor and respect myself. And I got to make a change here. And I have to walk away and say like, I'm no longer accepting this in my life, and I have to move forward and I have to do things differently. And, I need space and I need time to be able to really do this. And, the dance really still kind of continued for the next year of like it being a really great conversation and ending in a beautiful way, but still there being like friendship. And that led me to realizing like, oh, I have to like really cut cords here and like really clear space because this is still lingering and impacting me. And so I would say like when I finally learned that, like anything that I want from someone else, I have to start giving to myself. And so that was part of that 2-year singleness and, taking all the baths, making myself great dinners and really like anything that I wanted from someone else, just like pouring into me, which then led me to, I would say like radiating and really like in this elevated space and ending up in, at a wellness event where I met Eb.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love you guys together. Let's talk about that. So if you guys don't know Eben Britton, you can go back a couple episodes. He talks about modern masculinity on this podcast. Eben is your boyfriend, partner.
Yeah. Yeah. All the things. It's cool.
So how I discovered Eben was on Instagram. A clip came through. He was on, I believe his name's Sean Stevenson's podcast. And it's a clip of him talking about his divorce, and he started crying. It was very authentic, and that's what drew me to him. I'm like, this guy is really authentic. Let me check it out. Oh, he's having an event called Heal on Flow. Let me go to this. So that's how I found out about him. So with the timing of things, it seemed like he was still healing from divorce when you guys met. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because I have been through, I've dated and chosen guys before where they were clearly still healing from previous relationships. And I had a lot of reservation about it. I would say my experience from it wasn't great. So for me, I learned, I said, maybe try to choose a different person, or, pick, you need to look at some things. Why are you choosing this person? So did any reservations come up with you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is so funny. I told him, I was like, hey, Christine's going to ask you this question. I'm going to dive in here, and it honestly made me reflect and look back yeah, what was the process when I met Eb, and, how his life was unfolding, and in the way that we went about that. And so when I met Eb, or really when we started to recognize that there was energy, and that we wanted to explore that, it was early on. And so I had all the reservations. And from my previous relationship, I had promised myself, I'll never silence myself again. I'll say the thing, I'm not going to deny or suppress. It was okay, do you get it? This is one of the lessons that I needed to learn. And so early on, anytime I had a question, a question mark pop up, I listened to that and I honored that, and I just expressed it. I would say hey, I'm not a distraction. I'm not just someone that's fun, or this place for you to escape, healing and doing this work. And I would say it, is a distraction for you, and ask those questions. And this is really just in the talking phase, just getting to know one another, but, knowing that we were wanting more. And it was clear. So we hung out in person one time, and I could tell there isn't actual emotional capacity here for him to enter into a relationship. I could feel it, And so I remember I left that time together, and I spent the next couple of days kind of processing and saying hey, I know I have to have a conversation, and what do I really want to express here? And so, we hopped on a FaceTime, and I said all of that, hey, I've done the gray area before. I've done this, not all the way in, kind of committed, or just when we're together, it's cool and it's fun. I was I'm not interested in that at all, and at this point, I know my worth. And so I'm not entering into this type of space with anyone unless we're both totally willing, ready, and desiring to be all in, And I mean, it's Eb, so he was great. And he was also yeah, and I do, that experience for him was I do need to be alone. I do need some time. And so we took time, that it wasn't an instant. It was looking at what was actually in front of us, because while there's all this potential and there's hopes and dreams, it's well, what's actually happening? And so I think it was important that neither of us ignored that, and we just openly talked about it and said hey, I'm feeling this and I'm feeling this. And okay, so one of the things I said to him in that conversation was, I can love you well in this season of life as your friend, but I can't, it's going to be weird if we muddy these waters and I'm trying to be in relationship with you, but watching you grieve and feel all this stuff, and you deserve that time and you should take that time, And so I think we should just do some space and be friends. And so we did. And so, it would just be every 2 weeks, hey, sending you love. Hey, hope you're well, until a couple months later, we ended up back in person at an event that we were both working at again. And I had totally put him in the friend box. So I was great, Eb's friend. I know how to operate. I know where he's at. And, Eb's a writer. He's so great with words. And so he'll tell you that for him, that when he came back in person and when he saw me, that his life went from black and white to color. That's what he says. And so he was pretty clear from that moment on, and he felt good about where he was like in his process. And I would say he was in full on pursuit then. And I was still like, I don't know. I don't know if it's really me, right, that you love, or is it the idea of me, or, you know, are you looking to just like feel good? And so I said all these things and like didn't hold back at all. And some of it felt like, man, this is kind of like feels rude to say, or like, you know, this could hurt his feelings, but I really have to hold up this mirror because I need to be sure, because I'm not like, and I'm like, and I like you so much as a person. I respect you so much that I don't want to mess this up. Like, I would rather us just be friends than like enter into this thing when you're not ready and just it blows up in our face, you know? So again, for a couple months, I really like resisted and spent a lot of energy and time. Like, I was like, let's just continue to get to know each other, because while we feel really deeply connected, because there was just that like feeling like, I feel like I've known you for lifetimes, you know, with him. But I was like, but I actually don't know you. So let's just like build this foundation of friendship and get to know each other. And then about a couple months later, so we did that. And a couple months later, though, he got really honest and was like, listen, like in my body, what's happening, like when I talk to you and I'm around you, he was like, it is not friendship, you know? And he's like, and I've spent my whole life or like really working to this place to live in my truth. And my truth is like, this is more than friends, and I want to date you. And it was an interesting, you know, I had encouraged him during those couple months, like, you need to go on dates, you need to like go, you know, and he did. He went on a couple dates, which that's another funny story, because they always brought up their cat on the date. And so it was like the universe just kept putting me in his face, and he was like, seriously. But that was important for me to see. I needed to see, like, it wasn't like I was testing him. I just needed to feel in my body, like, the energy that he's really ready and that it's really me. And so he did. He went and, you know, had some dates, and then he came back to me a couple months later, and I could tell there was like this energetic shift that had happened in him. And he was so rooted in this place of like, I don't need you, I want you, and I want to date you. And I could tell, like, okay, like this isn't like an escape thing. Like, he's like, it's you. Like, can we just date? Like, let me take you on a date. And I was like, okay, yeah. You know, and I finally felt ready to really lean into that. And I noticed that as soon as I said yes, I like this release of energy that I had used. So, because there was also this thing for me of like, I started to be like, wait, why am I resisting this? You know, like, why am I in this place where I'm telling him what he needs to do, versus also like, okay, I've been just reading the energy and like seeing what's in front of me. And here's this man that I like love and adore and trust. And he's saying he's ready. He is in full on pursuit of you, and he wants to date you. You know, is this good? Does it feel good? Is it going to be expansive? Am I going to grow here? Okay, well then why am I resisting this? Like, now why am I all of a sudden the unavailable one, you know? I was like, wait. So yeah, you know, I finally like released myself and was like, lean into this love. This is, you know, you've said you want this, so go for it. And so I did, and then it's really been a wrap ever since.
Oh, I love that. How long have you guys been together?
Let's see, like a year and a half, I guess now. Yeah, which is wild.
I love seeing you guys together because the energy I pick up on it's just calm. I used to photograph weddings for 15 years, and I pick up on stuff. I gravitate towards certain things, but it's just that person which is the kind of love I like too. It just feels like the person's there. Like, oh, there you are. It's not this, because I used to be performative too. Maybe I'm sensitive to that when it's too grandiose, or just, I like that relaxed, like, there you are. Yeah.
There's
energy.
Totally. You know, and when I obviously, like, you enter into a relationship and then things become clear to you, like when you look back at your past relationships, and it's really amazing, because I never really, like, when I was single, I was not interested. Like, I was in a place, I wasn't looking for love. I wasn't going on dates. Actually, a week before I met Eb, I was in my yoga studio and someone asked me like, hey, Kat, are you dating? And I was like, hell no. I was like, I love my life, you know? And I was like, it would have to be divine, smack me in my face, undeniable for me to pay attention. And then a week later, I met Eb, which was like, oh, perfect. But, you know, it's this really, yeah, you said it, like this calm energy. I am so free in this relationship. I am that silly, playful, wild girl and woman that I used to be. I never showed up that way in my other relationships, because it didn't feel like safe, secure. And I also just hadn't done the work for myself to be like, hey, you are good enough. You're perfect as you are. And, like understanding that I didn't have to be, a version of myself for someone to love me and accept me. And in fact, if that's how I was showing up, then it was clear information that this wasn't right. If I didn't feel free to be all of me, to have a bad day. And that's really been huge in this relationship is like, again, I still struggle with like my humanness, like the bad days. And if I'll be annoyed and not saying anything. I'm just like, hey, are you annoyed? I'm like, yeah, I'm annoyed, and he's like, you can be annoyed. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Yeah, okay. And then I just say it and suddenly I'm lighter. Thank God for this man who can lead me in this way, right? And show up this way and then hold the space for me when I just, am off or my energy is funky. He doesn't waver. I don't feel like, oh my God, is he still going to love me? Oh my God, is Eb going to leave? There's none of that, which is actually, I told him, I was like, the only way I'm able to show up that way in front of you is because I feel so safe and secure, which he knows. And because the only other people that have ever seen me that way are my parents, because I know I'm so safe and secure, like they're not going anywhere. And so it's been a beautiful place to experience myself, and to really start to reclaim parts of me, that I had just for a long time like forgotten or denied in other relationships.
For any person, well, it's mostly women listeners, female listeners, for any woman who finds themselves dating a man who is healing, what would you advise them to look out for that it can be workable?
I would say like really trust yourself, like if there's the question marks, if you have a feeling, like speak on it, trust that intuition, like something's off or you need clarity on something, don't hold on to that, speak it, and then let the person show you who they are. Because it's really, I think, it is a big testament to Eben and to the other human involved is like, do they understand that there is work here, that there is healing that needs to happen, that there are, things to reflect upon as they leave one relationship before they enter another. And, I knew from interacting with Eb and watching him and having conversations and asking the questions that I had that, he was always honest. And even if it was something I didn't necessarily want to hear, or that, initially was like, oh, like that sucks or hurt my feelings, but I take honest all day because it's like I need to know, I need to understand who I'm dealing with. And so I would just say like trust yourself, ask the questions, and then believe what they're showing you, not just what they're saying, but do the actions align? Are they actually taking the time and the space to feel the feelings, to grieve, to work through it, and know yourself, because I knew I'm not the space for that. I don't want to be the one that Eb's doing this processing with, because that wasn't going to be healthy for me or if we were ever going to have a chance to move forward. So, there may need to be some separation and some time where you let them go and you let life unfold. And that was really, I didn't know that Eb and I were going to come back together. But one of the things he said to me was, okay, whatever our vision is, let's hold it in our heart and then let the universe do the rest. And it worked. I actually didn't have to do anything. It was this natural unfolding, this organic coming back together. And then it was undeniable, versus trying to force or really clinging to this idea, this hope or the potential, and instead really looking at what was the reality of the situation.
I think Eben's great in that he's very self-aware and he does the work. Mm-hmm. He knows what he's feeling. He mm-hmm. knows when he's clear. Mm-hmm. And I think not all men, a lot of it is the way that they're raised. They're so not in touch with that, mm-hmm. that they don't even know what they want. They don't even know what's going on with them. They don't know that they're still healing. Mm-hmm. That was my experience when I was choosing those kind of men. So everything that you just said is great advice.
You said it. The self-aware piece, is the person in front of you self-aware? And are they willing to to admit that or to admit certain things? And, you know, do they even think that they have healing to do? One, you know, or are they like, no, I'm good. It's like, well, okay. The emotional maturity and capacity thing, you know, and I think even humans, like we talked about this, we're not raised that way to really be in touch with that or to learn how to communicate how we're feeling, or then given like constructive ways of, hey, when you feel this way, this is how you can handle it. I remember when I first heard emotion is just energy in motion. And it was like, oh, yeah, that makes like so much sense. It has to move. I remember like going back to my family and saying that to them, like, guys, because just in our household, it wasn't the language. And so it's something I get excited about, like with the, you know, the health, the healing, and then even like the spiritual and emotional journey that this, you know, the suffering has brought me through. The gift of it is I'm like, God, thank God I know this stuff, you know, because I do want children. I want to have a family. And it's like, I want to be able to do things differently and to really arm them and set the foundation, you know, for them with this stuff. So, you know, hopefully they don't have to experience it the way I did.
The last thing I want to ask you, because I think you do a great job at it, which
Thank you.
I haven't seen many examples of women who can balance being in their feminine, being supportive, all those things, with also being proactive. For me personally, I think I'm naturally lean more towards my masculine side, and it's constant work. It takes constant self-awareness, but I am more in my masculine right now. I think you do a fantastic job.
Thank you.
And it's also reflected in, I think, the partner that you chose too. Like, it's interesting because everyone has masculine, feminine, right? And with Eben, the way that you guys mix, it's like perfect. It seems very complementary. It's very compatible and complementary. So is that a work in progress for you, or do you find that the balance comes pretty natural to you?
Totally a work in progress, because I would say, you know, I definitely have spent most of my life in the masculine, you know, in the doing. And then being a single woman and doing all the things, you know, yoga instructor and working in the schools and having a juice company and doing photography. I mean, like all of it. I was in like house reno and house design. And so it's and you're providing for yourself. So you are the provider and the protector, you know, for you. Yeah. And I'm really comfortable there. And so entering this relationship has really given me a place to soften and to feel more into the feminine role, the femininity, and it's hard, you know, especially like working with your partner. So it's a work in progress. We always have to have conversations because stuff totally comes up. Like this last Heal and Flow in August that we did, we got up there early, and so we were doing a lot of prep work. And, you know, I'm running the show. Like I'm the behind the scenes. I am actually the masculine piece of Heal and Flow. Yes. It's true, you know, and Eb is actually in the feminine. He's in the flow. He's in the magic. He's out front. He gets to be like, yeah, in the magic with you guys. And I'm very, you know, like we got to stay on track. I'm watching the time, making sure that everything transitions, that all the stuff is set up. And so I'm definitely more on that side. And so noticing like, okay, when I'm in this space, I don't really have the ability right now to be the soft, nurturing, gentle girlfriend. Like I need to be able to look at Eb and be like, yo, go fill up the tub, you know, and for him to not feel any way about it, like really, you know? And so in the prep work, I was noticing like, he was still like really being sweet and he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was being my, you know, my partner. And I was like in this space where I couldn't be the girlfriend. I couldn't be in the feminine and in the soft because I was like, no, I'm totally in mission mode and I need to get shit done. You know, so it was pulling on my energy in this way. And so I was like, oh, I just need to have a conversation and just say what I need, right? Versus like getting mad or creating this story. And so I just was like, we were sitting on the dock and I said, hey, you know, over the next few days, I want you to know, like, I love you and I support you. And like where I'm at right now, I'm totally like in the general, like I'm general cat right now. And I need to make sure things go smoothly because this is my control shit. And so, you know, I may not be able to talk to you how I normally would or ask you like in a sweet way or come up and like kiss you on the cheek and say, hey, can you go do this? I might just like bark an order. and please know, like, it's not you, nothing is wrong. Like, this is where I'm at. And this is how I operate right now, and he's so great because he just chuckles and laughs and he's like, I got you. Okay. Yes. Thank you for communicating. So it's more of just the communicating, where I'm at and what I'm feeling and my needs. And so I'm glad that, as a guest at Heal and Flow, it felt really like this beautiful balance and like I was in my feminine, because internally that's not always the case. Like, there is sometimes tension. And so it's noticing that and like taking a second to slow down. For me, I will just move so quickly through my days. And so I'm always having to just stop and take a breath and be like, there's no hurry, there's no rush. Like, just breathe, just be like you're doing it, and actually soften, because it's also a gift. The masculine energy, the ability to create and to produce and to go and to execute. I'm like, I love that. I love that about myself. And it's been a great experience working with your partner. And I would say it just comes back to the communication, and it's always adapting and adjusting and definitely still learning.
Yeah, well, the fact that you support him in this way, it's a lot to produce those events. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of commitment. And I myself would have reservations. This is my own shit, is because my parents worked together growing up, and while they somehow, the business runs and makes great money, there was a lot of dysfunction. I have still PTSD from it, where I don't want to work with my husband. Or if we did, it would be a huge learning curve for me.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking that, I'm like, Kat's just so generous for wanting to support him in this way, because I know how much effort and time that takes, but also balancing that out with when you're a proactive woman and you do your own thing as well. You have your Beloved Woman workshop. I think for me, I would be like, but what about me and my thing, and balancing that?
Oh, yeah.
Is my fear.
Yeah. No, well, let me just say, like, it comes up, it's real, it's like a real, that like, what about me? What about my stuff? And then I get to go, oh, okay, if this is coming up for me, if I'm feeling this means like I need to give some more time and attention to what's on my heart and what I want to create, which is really where Beloved Woman, why it finally happened. Because through pouring into, and we're creating this thing together, truly. And it's like, I love being a part of these spaces. Like, this is, my heart and my dream as well. And so it was like, oh, but I do have some of my own things that are asking to come forth. And so creating the time and setting the boundaries to say, hey, I can't take this on because I've got my thing and I'm going to get it done, because I could have pushed this forever, the 8-week woman's course. I was like, oh, maybe I'll do it in the new year. Oh, it's really busy. And it was like, hey, this will never happen unless you commit and you carve out this time for you and your thing. And that's okay, So, and then of course he's like great and supportive, and he like fans the flame, and he's the ultimate encourager. So it's good.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I think it just depends on what you're looking for. But I've seen some either guy friends or scenarios where they want their partner with them all the time, supporting. And if she wants to go off to do her own thing, it's like, well, what about me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's just getting clear on really what you're looking for, and like you said, communicating.
Yeah, totally. And that's like when you enter a relationship, it's being clear about, who you are and what you want. And I'm a big freedom person, like I was living my whole life before I met you. Like, that doesn't stop, and that was one thing that I did in previous relationships, talking about patterns, is I would make my person like my whole world, and I would give 100% of my time and energy to them and whatever they wanted. And then I would end up feeling some type of way, and it was like, oh, well, I did that, because I didn't ask for what I needed or what I wanted, or just continue to do things that filled me up, And so part of getting out of that last relationship and having those 2 years was really like getting to know myself again. Yeah. And I actually read this book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. She gives this beautiful like 9-box grid representation of your life. And she was like, if you have a 1-box life and it's like relationship, well, if that goes away, well, then it feels like your world is ending, because that was your world, or maybe it's work for you. And if you get fired, or God forbid something happens to your job, you feel like you have nothing, versus if she just use the visual, like you have family and friends and hobbies and contribution and fitness and relationship and XYZ, spirituality and personal growth, like all these things that make you up as a total human, right? And so I took that approach in those 2 years, was really like, let me build my life out again. And it was total thriving.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on
Thank
your
you.
first podcast. You did an amazing job.
Thank you.
You speak really well.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you
All of
for
you do. Eben
asking me
too.
to come. Yeah, this is great. This is great for my growth. So
Awesome.
yeah, I appreciate you.
If people would like to check out more of your work or send you a DM, where can they do that?
They could do that at Beloved Body on Instagram, Kat Shelton. And you can find us at Heal and Flow by Eben Britton. You can look up Eben to find out more about our events and our offerings.